So, I don't know if this third video is even necessary, but I just felt like I left the last video off at a kind of a chutohampa point, which means kind of a, what's the translation for chutohampa? Kind of in the middle. By the way, I chose this angle so I could have my nice little poster in the background. But anyways, yeah, so the summary of these videos is if you're going to make a decision, try this as an approach. Don't try to look for the best solution. Just ask yourself what solution is good enough and just go with that. Good enough. I I I don't relate to this notion of perfectionism, but if you do, you might look into how much your thinking is undergirded by some attitude about seeking the best. And if you can change your attitude to seeking what's good enough, maybe that loosens this perfectionism. I kind of wonder whether that's why I can't relate to this quality or trait of perfectionism and the subsequent sort of, or the concurrent paralysis that occurs for those who suffer from that, is that they're seeking the best and therefore, but if they were just going for good enough. I remember when I started writing my books, my attitude was, I'm just going to write this shit, and if I get about 17 people to read it, that'll be a success for me. And that's how I wrote almost every one of my books. And yeah, but uh, I don't really have a lot to say in this video, but one comment I could make is in the first video I mentioned something that when I first came across the theory of evolution, uh, one of the main principles that drove my life, informed my life, and shaped my attitude about living was growth. And I thought growth was very important. And I think, for example, if you're interested in the spiritual life, the notion of spiritual growth becomes very important. But when one looks at evolution theory, and maybe you got a hint of this, the notion of sustaining, the ability to sustain something becomes more important because it's not growth kind of, what sort of frames the attitude of growth is this idea that one is growing towards something, whether it's to grow stronger, taller, bigger, smarter, deeper, whatever it may be. And these are all, again, what I call intrinsic qualities. They don't have much to do with the environment that one is always interacting, one is essentially a part of. Whereas if one takes the sustaining attitude, it's the question isn't how can I become stronger or bigger or better, it's how can I continually sort of adapt my trajectory so that I can sustain myself within this environment and that I can, and also so that the environment can sort of sustain me. And that's a very different question. And, and I think in alignment with that attitude is that if one starts thinking of sustaining as opposed to growth, I mean, growth is still important to some extent, but to deepening one's quality, one's ability to sustain, uh, I think it lends itself toward a more long-term outlook. And the longer that I've been alive, the more I've come around to this idea that kind of conjoined with the idea of sufficiency over optimality, I think, is this idea that things that take a long time are more valuable than things that happen or arrive quickly or with, quick effort. Something that I can work really hard for 3 months to accomplish, to me, just isn't that valuable at this point. But something that I chip away at for a decade or two to arrive at just feels, the word is hard won. It's more hard won, and there's more depth to it. And what I find is that if I'm trying to help others or work with others in any way, it's those things that have more depth to it that reverberate somewhere more deeply in others. And so, I would say that life is really just about what can I contribute to others. And if what I have to contribute to others is kind of shallow, in other words, it's the result of just a few weeks, few months effort, it doesn't go very deep. But if it's something that I've managed to sustain for, let's say, a decade or two or three, then that tends to come from a much deeper place. And so it tends to touch something much deeper in someone else. And and so this I think it's very important to think in terms of what can I sustain across a long period of time. Now, I'm way off the original topic, but to me, there's something about when one seeks what's good enough, it's easier to sustain that than as opposed to this constant effort at going toward what's best. And uh, and by the way, again, this is all just random or just ramblings, but I realized today, what is today? Today is June 28th, 2024. I realized today that something that I've been saying for the past couple of years, I basically borrowed from the complex adaptive system. Have been saying uh, when it comes to money and possessions, I've been saying enough is greater than a lot, or enough is greater than abundance. Yeah, but I realize that's just a rephrasing of sufficiency over optimality. But anyway, yeah, enough, knowing enough means one has enough. Abundance means one has a lot, or a feeling of a lot, or even not abundance, but a lot. And I think the issue with abundance and a lot mentality is that it's always, there's a tendency to sort of seek more. Whereas enough just says, oh, I have enough. And even if it's not a lot by most people's standards, it's enough. And there's a contentment. And so whether it's enough, good enough, contentment, I sort of see all these as aligned in spirit and attitude. So, anyways, that's it. I thought I would have like an 8-part series, but this was really a 2-part series with random musings in this third video. I just burped. I hope you didn't hear that. All right. I hope everyone's well, all 7 of you.